The cold metal walls of Outpost Omega-9 whispered stories of survival. Mackenzie Sullivan's fingers traced the edge of her grandmother's blood-stained journal, its pages yellowed and brittle, yet holding the key to humanity's most intricate revenge. Outside the reinforced viewport, asteroid fields drifted like silent witnesses to a forgotten war. The research station hung suspended in the Kepler rim, a desolate region so far from known space that even the most advanced long-range scanners would struggle to detect its existence. Mackenzie adjusted the neural interface of her prosthetic arm, feeling the quantum circuits pulse against her skin. Each movement sent ripples of data through the station's advanced systems, a dance of technology more sophisticated than anything the consortium could imagine. Her team consisted of 37 individuals, each one a survivor, each one carrying a legacy of loss. They were not soldiers in the traditional sense, but architects of a revenge centuries in the making. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the station's chief strategist, stood near a holographic display that constantly shifted with complex mathematical projections. Her dark eyes reflected the blue-green light of the quantum computer, its processing power humming with barely contained potential. "System diagnostics are complete," announced Michael Chen, the lead computational engineer. His fingers danced across multiple holographic interfaces, each movement revealing layers of encrypted information. The predictive models are showing a 99.7% accuracy rate for potential conflict scenarios. Mackenzie walked closer to the main computer core. Her prosthetic arm interfaced directly with the system, a technological marvel born from the desperate innovations of humanity's darkest days. The arm was more than a replacement limb. It was a living database, a repository of generational knowledge and technological breakthrough. "Show me the consortium's current fleet movements," she commanded. The holographic display erupted with a three-dimensional map of known space. Thousands of data points flickered, each representing a potential threat, each carefully tracked and analyzed. Red markers indicated consortium military positions, while intricate blue lines showed potential attack vectors and strategic weak points. Elena approached, her weathered hands clasped behind her back. "We've been preparing for this moment for 3 generations," she said quietly. "Every resource, every technology, every calculated risk has been about this day." The story of their preparation was etched into the very walls of the station. Photographs of fallen family members lined the corridors, a memorial and a motivation. Children who had lost parents, parents who had lost entire communities, survivors who had sworn to ensure that humanity would never again be a victim. Michael interrupted the silence. "The quantum predictive system is showing something unusual in the Epsilon quadrant." His voice carried a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The holographic display shifted, zooming into a region of space that seemed unremarkable at first glance. But the quantum computer saw what traditional sensors could not: a subtle weakness in the consortium's defensive grid, a microscopic vulnerability that could be exploited. Mackenzie studied the projection, her prosthetic arm interfacing directly with the system. Years of training, of preparation, of waiting, all would come down to moments like these. The computer wasn't just predicting possibilities, it was constructing entire potential realities, wargame scenarios that played out in milliseconds. "We're ready," she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. The station's environmental systems hummed softly, recycling air that had been carefully maintained for years. Every resource was precious, every system optimized for maximum efficiency. They were not just a research station, they were humanity's last hope, its most sophisticated weapon. Outside, the asteroid field continued its eternal dance. Silent, patient, waiting. Elena placed a hand on Mackenzie's shoulder. "Your grandmother would be proud," she said, her voice carrying the weight of countless memories. Mackenzie nodded, her gaze fixed on the holographic display. The quantum computer continued its relentless calculations, weaving strategies that would reshape the galaxy. Humanity's revenge was no longer a distant dream. It was becoming a calculated reality. Jake Rodriguez's cargo ship, the Starweaver, drifted through the bustling trade routes of the Orion sector. To any casual observer, it appeared to be nothing more than a standard merchant vessel, rusted hull, outdated cargo manifests, and a seemingly unremarkable crew. But beneath the carefully crafted facade, the ship was a precision instrument of human vengeance. The bridge was a study in controlled chaos. Holographic displays flickered with encrypted communications, each message a carefully placed piece of a massive strategic puzzle. Jake's hands moved with practiced ease, simultaneously managing the ship's navigation and coordinating a network of sleeper agents spread across 17 different star systems. "Incoming transmission," announced Samantha Kim, the ship's communication specialist. Her fingers danced across a specialized encryption interface, filtering through layers of communication protocols that would render the message unreadable to any consortium interceptor. The message was simple, coded in a language that existed only in the memories of those who had survived the Great Purge. Jake's eyes narrowed as he decoded the transmission, a signal that would activate the first wave of their elaborate plan. "Commence Phase 1, he muttered, his voice low and controlled. Across the galaxy, seemingly ordinary individuals began to move. A maintenance worker on a consortium space station subtly introduced a microscopic data virus into the central communication network. The diplomatic aide adjusted a seemingly innocuous piece of decorative art, embedding a quantum transmission device that would slowly map out entire intelligence infrastructures. In the luxurious capital world of the consortium, high-ranking officials began to receive encrypted messages. At first, they appeared to be routine communications, diplomatic correspondence, trade reports, standard bureaucratic noise. But each message carried a payload designed to slowly and systematically dismantle their entire intelligence network. The first cracks appeared subtly: a minor discrepancy in a financial report, an unexplained communication lag, a security protocol that seemed to malfunction in the most innocuous way possible. To the untrained eye, these were nothing more than bureaucratic glitches. To Jake and his team, they were precision strikes in an information war. Samantha leaned closer to Jake. "The first layer of infiltration is complete," she reported. "Our agents have successfully compromised 17 key communication nodes within the consortium's central network." Jake nodded, his fingers tracing a holographic map that showed the intricate web of their operation. Each point of infiltration was carefully selected, each agent positioned with surgical precision. They were not just attacking, they were dismantling an entire system from within. On a distant research station, Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched the initial stages of their plan unfold. The quantum computer processed countless scenarios, each possibility mapped and analyzed in milliseconds. What appeared to be random disruptions were actually a carefully choreographed dance of technological warfare. "The consortium believes they destroyed us," Jake said to no one in particular. "They thought they could erase humanity from the galactic stage." Each disruption was more than a tactical move. It was a message, a declaration that humanity was far from defeated. The sleeper agents were not just operatives. They were living testimonies to the resilience of a species that refused to be erased. A junior communication officer on a consortium military vessel first noticed something was wrong when routine system checks began to return inconsistent results. Diagnostic programs seemed to run in circles. Security protocols appeared to conflict with themselves. It was as if the very fabric of their technological infrastructure was slowly coming apart at the seams. By the time the first alarms began to sound, it would be too late. Jake Rodriguez allowed himself the smallest of smiles. The first phase of their plan was complete. The consortium would soon realize that the humans they had once subjugated were no longer the same species they remembered. The Starweaver continued its seemingly mundane journey through the trade routes. To all appearances, it was just another cargo ship, but within its reinforced hull, the first salvos of humanity's revenge were already being fired, not with weapons, but with lines of code and carefully placed information. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. The research facility beneath New Hope Colony resembled nothing so much as a wound in the planet's frozen surface. Massive cooling systems hummed, managing temperatures that would freeze ordinary computer systems into useless chunks of metal and silicon. Dr. Emma Blackwood stood at the center of humanity's most extraordinary technological breakthrough, a quantum computing system that defied every known limitation of computational science. Holographic displays surrounded her, each one a window into potential futures. The system was more than a computer. It was a living, predictive intelligence that could map out millions of potential conflict scenarios in less than a millisecond. Emma's fingers moved across the interface, her touch both delicate and authoritative. "Run scenario Gamma 97, she commanded. The holographic displays exploded with complexity. Millions of potential military encounters played out simultaneously, each one an intricate dance of strategy, probability, and technological intervention. Where traditional military intelligence saw linear progressions, this system saw multidimensional chess, with countless moves happening simultaneously. Michael Chen, the lead engineer, watched in awe. "The predictive accuracy is beyond anything we've ever created," he whispered. The quantum computer didn't just predict, it understood. It learned. It anticipated with a level of intelligence that bordered on prescience. Deep within the system's core, quantum entanglement created a computational network that defied traditional understanding. Millions of quantum bits processed information in ways that made standard binary computing look like an abacus. Each calculation was a symphony of potential realities, each prediction a glimpse into possible futures. Emma pulled up a comprehensive analysis of consortium military capabilities. The holographic display showed not just current fleet positions, but potential strategic movements, weak points, and vulnerabilities that no traditional intelligence system could detect. It was as if they had been granted the ability to see through the fabric of space-time itself. "The system is showing something interesting," Michael announced. His voice carried a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "There's a cascading vulnerability in the consortium's defensive grid, not just a single point of failure, but a systemic weakness that runs through their entire military infrastructure." The breakthrough wasn't just technological, it was revolutionary. Traditional military strategy relied on prediction and preparation. This system could actually manipulate the very probability of conflict itself. It didn't just show potential outcomes, it could subtly influence the conditions that would lead to those outcomes. Emma walked to a secondary workstation, her hand brushing against a memorial wall. Photographs of those lost in previous conflicts lined the facility, a constant reminder of why they were developing this technology. Each image told a story of loss, of subjugation, of a species that had been pushed to the brink of extinction. "We're not just creating a weapon," she said quietly. "We're creating a new understanding of conflict itself." The quantum system began to generate potential intervention scenarios. Each one was more intricate than the last, showing not just military movements, but the complex social, economic, and political ripple effects of potential actions. It was predictive intelligence taken to its ultimate conclusion. Michael pulled up a series of simulations showing how their technological breakthrough could neutralize consortium military capabilities. "Look at this," he said, excitement building in his voice. "We can actually predict and neutralize their most advanced weapon systems before they're even deployed." The facility was more than a research station. It was humanity's ultimate response to generations of oppression. Every calculation, every line of code was a testament to human resilience and innovation. Outside, the frozen landscape of New Hope Colony stretched endlessly. Nothing about the planet suggested the extraordinary technological marvel hidden beneath its surface. To any external observer, it would appear to be nothing more than another remote research outpost. Emma watched as the quantum system continued its relentless calculations. Millions of potential futures mapped out, analyzed, understood. The consortium believed they had broken humanity. They had no idea what was coming. "Prepare for full system integration," she commanded. The quantum computer hummed in response, not just a machine, but a living weapon of pure computational intelligence. Humanity's revenge was no longer a distant dream. It was becoming a mathematical certainty. The first strikes came like ghosts, silent, precise, devastating. Mackenzie Sullivan's prosthetic arm interfaced directly with the quantum computer, her neural pathways merging with the most advanced strategic system ever created. The U.S. Retribution hung in space, a weapon of such complexity that it defied traditional understanding of military technology. "Initiating primary vector," she commanded. Across 17 different star systems, human strike teams moved with impossible coordination. Ships appeared and disappeared like quantum phantoms, striking critical consortium infrastructure with surgical precision. Each attack was more than a military operation. It was a calculated message of human capability and resolve. On the communication hub of the consortium's central command, alarms began to sound. Lieutenant Commander Zura Phillips watched in growing horror as entire defense networks collapsed. Communication relays went dark. Strategic defense platforms simply ceased to exist, not destroyed in spectacular explosions, but simply removed from existence. The quantum computer had calculated every possible defensive response. Before the consortium could even comprehend an attack was happening, their systems were already compromised. Defensive protocols became weapons of self-destruction. Secure communication channels transformed into conduits of their own dismantling. "This is impossible," whispered a consortium fleet admiral, watching holographic displays turn from strategic maps to cascading fields of digital chaos. Each human strike was a multi-layered assault. Cyber warfare merged with physical intervention. A communication relay would go dark, followed by a precision energy burst that would render the entire orbital platform inoperable. Defensive satellites found their own targeting systems turned against them, creating a nightmare of mechanical self-cannibalization. Jake Rodriguez coordinated from the Starweaver, his hands moving across holographic interfaces with machine-like precision. "Phase 2 initiated," he reported to Mackenzie. "Consortium defensive grid is showing complete systemic failure." The attacks were not about total destruction. They were about demonstrating absolute technological superiority. Every action was calculated, every movement a statement. Humanity was not seeking to annihilate. They were showing that they could annihilate if they chose to. Deep within the quantum computer's predictive matrices, millions of potential conflict scenarios played out simultaneously. Each attack was not just a military action, but a carefully constructed narrative. The consortium was being taught a lesson about underestimating a species they thought they had broken. On a distant research station, Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched the initial assault unfold. Her hands moved across a holographic display, making minute adjustments to the overall strategy. "We are writing a new chapter of human history," she murmured. The psychological impact was as important as the physical assault. These were not random attacks. Each target was selected to demonstrate the absolute technological supremacy humanity had developed in secret. Military installations, communication networks, strategic defense platforms, all fell with impossible ease. Consortium military commanders found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to know their every move before they made it. Defensive systems became traps. Communication networks became conduits of their own destruction. It was warfare beyond traditional understanding, a conflict fought in realms of probability and quantum potential. "Complete network compromise in Sector 7, reported Samantha Kim from the Starweaver's communication station. Her fingers danced across interfaces that would have seemed like pure science fiction mere decades ago. The U.S. Retribution moved through space like a predator, invisible when it wanted to be, devastating when it chose to strike. Mackenzie Sullivan's prosthetic arm pulsed with computational energy, each movement a complex mathematical calculation of potential outcomes. As the first wave of attacks concluded, the message was clear. Humanity was no longer the species the consortium remembered. They had been forged in the fires of near extinction, rebuilt through generations of strategic preparation, and now they had returned, not as victims, but as something entirely new. The galaxy trembled, not from fear, but from the realization that everything was about to change. Information became the most lethal weapon in humanity's arsenal. Jake Rodriguez sat in the communications center of the Starweaver, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that seemed to breathe with living intelligence. Around him, a carefully constructed information network began to pulse, a weapon more devastating than any conventional military strike. "Initiate broadcast protocol," he commanded. Across hundreds of consortium worlds, communication systems suddenly found themselves hijacked. Every screen, every public display, every communication channel became a conduit for humanity's long-suppressed truth. Historical records materialized, raw, unfiltered documentation of the atrocities committed against human colonies. Holographic displays in government centers, public squares, and private homes flickered to life. The first images were clinical, satellite recordings of entire human colonies being systematically destroyed. Precise documentation showed the calculated genocide that the consortium had believed would remain hidden forever. Young members of consortium species watched in growing horror. A Krillorian teenager on her homeworld saw recordings of her government's military systematically eliminating human settlements. A Zarn administrative assistant witnessed unedited communications revealing the cold calculation behind humanity's near extinction. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had spent decades collecting this evidence. Every recording, every communication log, every fragment of historical documentation had been carefully preserved. This was not just revenge. This was a clinical exposure of historical truth. "We're not just attacking their military," Elena explained to Mackenzie Sullivan via encrypted communication. "We're dismantling their entire cultural narrative." A psychological assault was multi-layered. It wasn't enough to show the atrocities. The broadcasts provided context, showed the systematic nature of the oppression. Personal testimonies from survivors played alongside official documentation. Quantum-enhanced communication systems ensured that no transmission could be blocked, no signal could be jammed. Samantha Kim managed the communication network with surgical precision. "Penetration rate is at 98.7%, she reported. "They cannot stop the transmission." Internal communications within the consortium began to fracture. Younger generations confronted their elder leaders. Military units found themselves questioning decades of accepted historical narratives. The very fabric of their societal understanding began to unravel. Jake watched the holographic displays showing the cascading effect of their information campaign. Each broadcast was more than a simple transmission. It was a carefully calculated intervention designed to create maximum psychological impact. On the research station deep in the Kepler Rim, Emma Blackwood analyzed the psychological data in real time. The quantum computer processed millions of potential social reaction scenarios, tracking the precise psychological impact of each revelation. "Look at the generational divide," she pointed out to Michael Chen. The holographic displays showed how different age groups within consortium societies were processing the information. Younger populations showed increasing signs of internal revolt, while older leadership became increasingly defensive. The broadcasts weren't just about past atrocities. They demonstrated the technological superiority humanity had developed in secret. Each transmission carried an underlying message. The species they had tried to destroy had not only survived, but had become something far more advanced. Consortium news networks attempted to counter the broadcasts, but each attempt was immediately neutralized. Their communication systems turned into additional conduits for human-controlled information. Military installations found their internal communication networks compromised. Official narratives began to collapse under the weight of documented evidence. What had been accepted as historical fact became a battleground of truth. "We are not seeking destruction," Jake said, recording a final message that would be broadcast across all consortium communication networks. "We are seeking understanding. We are seeking justice." The psychological warfare was precise, calculated, and devastating. It wasn't about hatred. It was about exposing a truth that had been buried for generations. Humanity was rewriting its own narrative, transforming from victims to architects of a new galactic understanding. As communication systems across consortium space continued to broadcast humanity's long-suppressed history, one thing became clear: nothing would ever be the same again. The truth, once released, could never be contained. The consortium's desperate counterattack began like a wounded animal's final, frantic assault. Admiral Krell, the most decorated military commander in consortium history, stood on the bridge of the flagship Sovereign Spear. His scaled hands trembled as holographic displays around him dissolved into cascading fields of digital chaos. Every strategic protocol, every carefully planned defensive measure, seemed to evaporate the moment it was conceived. "Lock down all communication channels," he roared, his voice rising above the cacophony of failing systems. But it was already too late. Mackenzie Sullivan watched from the U.S. Retribution, her prosthetic arm interfacing seamlessly with the quantum computer. Each of the consortium's moves was not just predicted, it was already neutralized before the command could be fully processed. Holographic displays showed the entire conflict in real time, a three-dimensional chess match where humanity was playing multiple dimensions simultaneously. Consortium military units found their most advanced weapon systems turning against themselves. Communication networks became labyrinths of misinformation and strategic confusion. "They're attempting a concentrated assault in the Epsilon Quadrant," reported Michael Chen from the research station. His fingers danced across interfaces that seemed to breathe with computational intelligence. Prediction matrix shows complete neutralization in approximately 47 seconds. Exactly 47 seconds later, the consortium's assault collapsed. Emma Blackwood monitored the strategic overview, her eyes reflecting the complex holographic displays. "It's not just about defeating their military," she explained to Jake Rodriguez via encrypted communication. "We're demonstrating the absolute futility of their resistance." Each consortium military unit discovered that their most advanced technologies had been compromised. Weapon systems became unreliable. Communication networks dissolved into meaningless noise. Navigation protocols sent ships spiraling into predetermined traps. The quantum computer wasn't just predicting, it was actively manipulating the probability of conflict itself. Where traditional military strategy saw linear progressions, this system understood conflict as a multi-dimensional, constantly evolving equation. "Total systems compromise in Sector 9, announced Samantha Kim. Her voice carried a clinical precision that bordered on detachment. "Consortium defensive grid is showing complete systemic failure." Admiral Krell watched in growing horror as his most sophisticated battle plans disintegrated in real time. Entire fleet formations found themselves navigating into carefully prepared kill zones. Weapon systems that should have been state-of-the-art became nothing more than expensive metal sculptures drifting through space. The psychological impact was as devastating as the military defeat. Jake Rodriguez understood that this was more than a military campaign. It was a comprehensive demonstration of technological superiority. Each neutralized attack was a message. The species they had once believed they had destroyed had become something far beyond their comprehension. "We're not just fighting," Jake explained to Mackenzie during a brief encrypted communication. "We're teaching them a lesson about the consequences of underestimation." Quantum predictive systems showed millions of potential conflict scenarios playing out simultaneously. The consortium was fighting an enemy that existed beyond traditional understanding of warfare. Their most advanced military minds were reduced to watching their strategies dissolve before they could even be fully implemented. On the research station in the Kepler Rim, Dr. Elena Rodriguez monitored the broader implications. This wasn't just a military victory. It was a fundamental restructuring of galactic power dynamics. Complete neutralization of consortium offensive capabilities, the quantum computer announced in its emotionless voice. Each word was a precise mathematical calculation, each statement a testament to humanity's technological evolution. As the final stages of the consortium's counterattack collapsed, a new reality became clear. This was not a war in the traditional sense. This was a comprehensive demonstration of a species that had been forged in the fires of near extinction, rebuilt through generations of strategic preparation. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. Humanity had not just survived. They had become something entirely new. The final confrontation began in the silent expanse between star systems known as the Neutral Zone. Mackenzie Sullivan stood on the bridge of the U.S. Retribution, her prosthetic arm pulsing with computational energy. Around her, the most advanced human warship ever constructed moved with a fluidity that defied traditional understanding of space navigation. This was not just a military vessel. It was a living weapon, an embodiment of humanity's technological resurrection. "Prepare final approach," she commanded. Admiral Krell of the Consortium flagship watched in growing desperation as his most sophisticated defensive formations collapsed before they could even be fully implemented. The quantum predictive systems had reduced his entire military strategy to a series of predetermined failures. Jake Rodriguez coordinated from a secondary command center, his hands moving across holographic interfaces that seemed to breathe with living intelligence. "We're not here to destroy," he communicated to Mackenzie. "We're here to fundamentally reshape the galactic power structure." The U.S. Retribution moved through space like a quantum ghost, appearing and disappearing, striking with impossible precision. Each movement was a calculated mathematical equation, each attack a demonstration of technological capabilities that the Consortium had never imagined possible. Dr. Elena Rodriguez monitored the broader strategic implications from the research station in the Kepler Rim. The quantum computer processed millions of potential conflict scenarios with each passing microsecond. This was more than a military engagement, it was a comprehensive restructuring of galactic dynamics. "Consortium leadership is preparing for final communication," reported Samantha Kim, her fingers dancing across specialized communication interfaces. "They're requesting terms of surrender." The irony was not lost on Mackenzie. The same species that had once believed they could completely eradicate humanity now begged for mercy. Each communication channel was carefully monitored, each transmission analyzed by systems of computational intelligence that bordered on prescience. Emma Blackwood's quantum computing breakthrough had transformed warfare into something beyond traditional understanding. It wasn't about destroying the enemy, it was about demonstrating absolute technological superiority while offering a path to a new galactic order. "Open primary communication channel," Mackenzie commanded. The holographic display flickered to life. Admiral Krell appeared, his once proud posture now broken, his multiple eyes reflecting a mixture of fear and grudging respect. Behind him, the bridge of the Consortium flagship looked like a museum of defeated technology. "We surrender," Krell stated, the words seemingly pulled from him against his will. Mackenzie's response was calculated and precise. "This is not about destruction. This is about establishing a new framework of galactic cooperation." The terms were comprehensive. Complete transparency of historical records, comprehensive reparations for human colonies destroyed, a complete restructuring of galactic governance that would prevent any species from attempting systematic elimination again. Jake Rodriguez managed the diplomatic protocols with the same precision he had applied to the military campaign. "We are offering a path to redemption," he explained to the assembled Consortium leadership, "not through punishment, but through comprehensive restructuring." The quantum computer continued its relentless calculations. Each proposed diplomatic solution was analyzed across millions of potential future scenarios. This was diplomacy transformed into a mathematical equation, every potential outcome understood and prepared for. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched the final stages of the confrontation with a sense of historical closure. Generations of preparation, of careful strategic planning, of technological development, all had led to this moment. "Complete systems integration," the quantum computer announced. The words were more than a technical statement. They were a declaration of a new galactic reality. On the research station, Michael Chen looked at the holographic displays showing the final moments of the conflict. Tears formed in his eyes, not of sadness, but of a profound understanding of what humanity had achieved. They had not just survived. They had transformed. The Consortium leadership found themselves facing not a vengeful species, but architects of a new galactic understanding. Humanity offered not destruction, but a comprehensive path to redemption and collaborative evolution. As the final communication channels close, one thing became abundantly clear. The galaxy would never be the same again. 5 years after the conflict, the galaxy looked fundamentally different. Mackenzie Sullivan stood on the observation deck of the Galactic Cooperation Center, her prosthetic arm reflecting the light of multiple star systems visible through the massive viewport. The facility, built on neutral ground, represented humanity's most ambitious diplomatic achievement. Dr. Elena Rodriguez approached, her steps measured and deliberate. "We're not conquerors," she said quietly. "We're architects of a new galactic understanding. The technologies developed during humanity's strategic campaign have been carefully shared. Quantum computing systems that once represented ultimate military superiority now became tools of unprecedented scientific collaboration. Species that had once been bitter enemies found themselves working together on projects that would have been impossible mere decades earlier." Jake Rodriguez managed the diplomatic integration programs. Each initiative was carefully calculated, each diplomatic engagement a complex mathematical equation of potential outcomes. The quantum predictive systems that had once been weapons of war now became instruments of peaceful negotiation. On dozens of worlds, human-led reconstruction efforts demonstrated an approach to governance that was neither colonial nor destructive. Technological infrastructure was rebuilt. Historical records were opened. The full truth of past conflicts became a shared understanding rather than a weapon. The key was never revenge. Emma Blackwood explained during a comprehensive galactic conference. Her presentation showed how human technological development had transformed from a survival mechanism to a collaborative tool. "Our goal was always about creating a more balanced system of interstellar cooperation." The consortium's former military leaders found themselves in a unique position. Some became diplomats. Others joined collaborative scientific initiatives. The quantum computing breakthroughs meant that strategic thinking could now be applied to solving complex galactic challenges: climate restoration, resource distribution, interspecies medical research. Samantha Kim developed the communication protocols that allowed unprecedented levels of transparency between different species. Information networks that had once been weapons of psychological warfare now became conduits of mutual understanding. Michael Chen led a research initiative that demonstrated the true potential of the quantum computing breakthrough. Projects that would have taken centuries could now be completed in months. Entire planetary ecosystems could be analyzed and restored with unprecedented precision. The memorial wall on the research station in the Kepler rim remained, a constant reminder of the cost of the conflict. But now it served a different purpose. It was not just a record of loss, but a testament to human resilience and transformation. "We didn't just win a war," Jake Rodriguez told a gathering of young diplomats. "We created a new framework for galactic civilization." The technologies developed during the conflict found applications that went far beyond military use. Medical breakthroughs emerged from quantum computing research. Environmental restoration became possible on scales never before imagined. Species that had once been enemies now collaborated on projects that would have seemed impossible a decade earlier. Dr. Elena Rodriguez reflected on the journey. The strategy had been generations in the making. A careful, calculated approach to not just survival, but comprehensive transformation. Every technological breakthrough, every strategic calculation, had been about creating a path to a different future. Mackenzie Sullivan's prosthetic arm, once a symbol of war, now represented the seamless integration of technology and humanitarian progress. Each movement was a reminder of the journey humanity had undertaken. The galactic community watched in wonder. The species they had once tried to destroy had not only survived, but had become the architects of a new understanding of interstellar cooperation. On the observation deck, as multiple species worked together on complex holographic displays, the true victory became clear. This was not about human supremacy. This was about creating a framework where no species would ever again be pushed to the brink of extinction. The galaxy had trembled, but now it was healing, and humanity had become its unexpected guardians.